Hey guys, what is up? It's Larry the Batman fan here. I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to show you guys my PlayStation 1 collection and my Sega Saturn collection. I don't have a lot of either, so that's why I decided to combine them together. So without further ado, let's get started. SpongeBob SquarePants, Super Sponge, played it once or twice. It was an okay SpongeBob game. It was like a platformer game. The graphics were colorful and bright. Um, Although it wasn't an amazing game on PlayStation, it's not like Crash Bandicoot. This game I think does still work. That's another thing I wanted to mention is that some of these games they work and others don't. And I used to have the cases for all these, but when I was like leaving Florida and going back up to New York, I couldn't take the cases with me because they took up too much space. So I ended up keeping the disc and the manuals and the back cover arts, but because of the rain and shit, um, the manuals got destroyed. Unfortunately, most of them didn't make it back in one piece. So I just have the disc. Darkstone. This is like a gauntlet type of game. It's a action RPG. It's pretty good from what I played, although my copy is scratched up, and I don't think it works. But from what I played, it was pretty good. Streak, hoverboard racing, and that's exactly what this thing is. It's basically the predecessor to Airblade on PlayStation 2. If y'all have heard of Airblade and seen gameplay on YouTube, or haven't seen gameplay rather, on YouTube, please look it up. But it was a pretty fun game. It's got like 6 or 7 levels in it. That's about all it had. I think it had 1 or 2 levels that went backwards in the same level. You were racing backwards, but from when I played, it was all right. Death Trap Dungeon. That's a fun game. It's like a dungeon. Well, it's not really a dungeon crawler. It has like dungeons and stuff, but it's like an action game with like light RPG elements in it. It was pretty good. Star Wars Masters of Terkazi. Terrazkazi. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's a fighting game in the Star Wars franchise, and it kind of sucks. It wasn't really fair and balanced. It's pretty crappy. NBA Live 2001. Only have this game because it came with a bunch of the PlayStation games that I got, and a lot. Um, it works still, but I popped it in and tested it out to see if it works. That was about it because I'm not into the NBA Live games. Caesar's Palace. I don't know how to play poker personally, so this game wasn't for me. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like I fired it up to make sure it worked, but that was about it. Um, yeah, I'm not. I mean, if I knew how to play poker, I might enjoy this game, but because I don't know how to play poker, I didn't really enjoy it. D, which this game is a 3 disc thing. It still works surprisingly. Um, this is a horror game where the daughter's like father was killed by some evil force, and she has to go into this like house or this like deserted mall. I think it's a house though, and then you get in there, everything is not what it seems. It's very spooky. Um, the environments in the game, they definitely leave you with a lot of tension, and the music is very suspenseful in this game. It's also got some puzzle solving in the game that you do, like you have to like scroll and pick certain items up, and that's what helps you progress through the game. It's definitely not like Resident Evil at all, though. It'll definitely take a lot of time and patience to get through this game. Also, there's a clock in this game that if the time runs out past the time, you're dead. So, and there's a lot of trial and error in this game. Like if you hit the wrong button, it could send a death trap and you could end up dead. But the premise is basically she's trying to investigate why so many people are being killed. Her name is Laura in the game. It is a pretty good game, but it definitely doesn't hold up against Resident Evil at all. It's like a horror game with puzzle solving. It was also released on Sega Saturn and the Panasonic 3DO, and for the Panasonic 3DO standards, one of the best games that was on the 3DO, honestly. Because the 3DO, most of the games on the 3DO were pretty bad. X-Files for the PlayStation, it's a 4-disc thing. Not very good, honestly. It kind of sucks. Um, it's not as good as the PlayStation 2 X-Files game. That's a much better game based off the movie, or I mean the TV show. I recommend playing that one over this because this was sucky. It really did suck. The dialogue doesn't always like keep up with the person that's moving their mouths, and the puzzle solving in the game is boring, and it's not a very good game. I don't recommend the X-Files on PlayStation 1. Donald Duck Going Quackers. This is a good game. It's also on the Nintendo 64, and it might have been on the Dreamcast. Very good platformer game. It's a lot of fun. Do like a spin move to kill your enemies. Yeah, but it's definitely not on the same level as Crash Bandicoot. And again, it doesn't work. It's too scratched. Lemmings, Do It Again. Or, oh no, More Lemmings, I mean. There is a Lemmings game called Lemmings Do It Again or Do It Again. Not a big fan. Very slow paced. Yeah, it's a puzzle game. It's not my cup of tea. Action Bass, one of the worst fishing games ever made. I mean, I don't even know how to cast the reel out and catch the fish or wait to catch the fish, and the fish don't come very often in the game, so this game kind of sucks. Basically, what I say is stay away from fishing games. Video game wise, fishing games are not very fun. You're better off going out there with a friend and some turkey sandwiches and some like Pepsi and stuff, Mountain Dews, and getting some worms from Stewart's and going fishing yourself. That's more fun than playing the fishing games. Tokyo Highway Battle. This was an okay racing game, but the graphics look really bad. So, just saying. But from what I played, it was alright. Just piss poor graphics. Pipe Dreams 3D. This is basically a 3D version of Pipe Dreams. The original was on the NES, and here's the PlayStation version. Sadly, I played it once or twice. Then I moved up here and got super scratched up, and now it doesn't work. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forgotten Memories. Casper, Friends Around the World. I'll tell you, this game really sucks. Stay away from it. It's a piece of garbage. One of the worst games on PlayStation. Just do not buy it. You're better off watching Casper the movie. Descent. From what I remember, this is like a shooting game, but think of like the game Forsaken, which was on the N64, Dreamcast, and PlayStation 1. It plays very similar to that. It was okay. Not the greatest shooting game in the world, but it was alright. It doesn't work. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. They don't work. They don't work. Tarzan. Actually a good licensed game. Not too bad based off the movie. It was a good platformer game, side-scrolling platformer. They also released Tarzan on Game Boy Color, and there was also Tarzan on N64, which was identical to this, except for the audio play in it. Like you could hear the audio in this version, but the N64 version you just had to read a bunch of text because the N64 was still a cartridge-based system. Thunder Strike 2, kind of like Nuclear Strike, but a little bit better. It's good, but it's too scratched. Madden NFL 99. I have nothing to say about that. Motor Racer World Tour. This is a really fun motorcycle racing game. Highly recommend it. I actually have 2 copies of it because this one's super scratched up and it doesn't work. But yeah, you can play 2-player mode in this game and race your friends around the tracks. It was a blast to play. I would say that this game's underrated for sure. And even the sequel, Motor Racer 2. They're both pretty good. I liked it. You could also like get new bikes in the game as well. I just had to throw that out there. Because you start off with one bike and then eventually you unlock other bikes in the game. So, nice game. Not bad. Frogger, 3D Frogger game. Not too bad. Gotta get used to the jumping and stuff. But once you do, it's a lot of fun for a 3D Frogger. There's also Frogger 2, Swampy's Revenge. That's on PlayStation as well. Tiny Toon Adventures, Plucky's Big Adventure. This is not that great of a game, honestly. If you want a good Tiny Toons game, you got to play the ones on the NES and the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Those were much better than this version. Or that game. Give me a second, guys. Sorry. Alright, let's continue. Jade Cocoon. I played only the demo. As you see, this is a demo CD. It came with my lot of 50 PlayStation games from eBay. From what I played, it's a pretty damn good RPG. Seemed like a lot of fun, but I only got to play the first level of the game and then it stopped. I looked for this game online, but it's pretty expensive. It's around $70 for a copy. So I don't know if I really want to pay that much money for Jade Cocoon on PlayStation. If it was like maybe 40, I'd pull the trigger and get it. But $70, I don't know. So I just have the demo CD here. It's a pretty good game from what I played, though, even though I just have the demo. Mortal Kombat Trilogy. This is a very good game. You get a bunch. You get the first Mortal Kombat, second, third, and I think you get Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. You get all the ones that were on Sega Genesis for the PlayStation. Pretty good compilation. Very fun. Sadly, though, it's too scratched. Doesn't work. I wish it did. In fact, when I got my lot of these PlayStation games, I had 2 copies of that. And at the time, one of them worked and the other one didn't. But now neither one of them works. Spec Ops Stealth Patrol. Not really that great. I mean, I like the later Spec Ops games, like the one on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. That one's really good. And I know there's also Ranger Elite. And there's another one on PlayStation. There's like 3 of them on PlayStation. But they're like tactical shooters, the older games. And they have like a SOCOM vibe to them. That's what I can say. But yeah, not bad, but definitely frustrating. I'd have to say they are pretty frustrating. Tekken 3 is a very fun fighting game. Excellent game. Beat this game. A lot of fun. I love playing as King. King is my favorite character in the game. The Doesn't work though. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. These games do not work. Star Wars Dark Forces. This was like a first-person shooter in the Star Wars franchise. I think it was the first one of its kind. We didn't have Republic Commando at the time, so this was the first one. Unless there was one before it, but I don't know of one before it that was a first-person shooter. But from what I played, even though the graphics are bad, the game is still pretty fun. Plays a stormtrooper going through the levels and shooting things and unlocking doors. It's pretty cool. Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX. I tell you, I loved this game. It was a lot of fun. This is definitely one of the best PlayStation games in my opinion. Focused on the fun. For a sports game, just go around, ride your bike, do tricks, get like 15,000 for a pro score and like a 30,000 for a 6 score. And then there was another one that would get you like, what was it, a Super 6 score or something for like 45,000. Collect letters and do tricks and stuff. Pretty fun game. I like it. It's pretty good. Got some manuals. Here's a Dave Mirra manual. I was able to save a few of them for when I was coming up, but a lot of them got destroyed. Got water damaged. Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon. This is one of the best games you can get on PlayStation. I highly recommend it if you're a fan of Spyro and you like platformer games. This is definitely a blast. Also, don't skip out on Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, and then Spyro the Dragon, the first game. They're all very good. Sadly, my copy is busted. Doesn't work. Now, this game actually does work. Picked this up at Pastime Legends like a year ago, and I actually think it's a good shooter for the original PlayStation, based off the movie. But every now and then you get a movie-based game that doesn't suck. That's actually pretty good, and this one happened to be one of them. It's good. You play as the Pierce Brosnan version of James Bond. Go through the levels, save innocent people, shoot things. There's a level where you had to ski slope down the thing. You got another guy that's trying to take you out. A couple of them. There was some sniping missions in the game right there, as you can tell. And then there's just some third-person action. This is not like GoldenEye. It's not a first-person shooter. It's a third-person shooter. But still, not a bad game. Tomb Raider 3. Good for its time, I'd say. But going back to it now, it's just an exercise in frustration. Because the controls suck. And, it's mainly because of the controls that this game is hard to play. Back in the day, though, this was the shit. This was like one of the best games you could get for your original PlayStation, with either Tomb Raider, Tomb Raider 2, or Tomb Raider 3, or Tomb Raider Chronicles. There were like 5 or 6 Tomb Raider games. But it was a good game for its time, but playing it now, it doesn't hold up, I feel. This is one of the late releases on PlayStation, besides like Hellboy and a couple other games that were coming out around 2002, 2003. And you're probably like, what? They were still making games on PlayStation? They were, actually. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 only saw a release on PlayStation. It was not released on N64. N64 opt out, and then they just put it on GameCube, Nintendo GameCube. It was also on PS2 and Xbox. It's basically the same version, but the graphics aren't as good as the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube versions. It also doesn't work. Tomb Raider, the original, same problem. Good for its time, though. Motor Racer World Tour, this copy actually does work. Good game. Razor Freestyle Scooter. This game, a lot of people hate. They don't think it's a very good game. I don't think it's that bad of a game. I know it's not on the same level as Tony Hawk, but it's not bad. It's still a pretty fun game. It's also on N64 as well, and it was also on Dreamcast. Surprisingly, the best version is Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast version had like the best graphics. But yeah, it's not a bad game. It's not as bad as everyone says. It's pretty fun. Crash Bandicoot 2: The Wrath of Cortex. I fired this up like a month ago and it actually works, thank God. Because it's one of the best games you could get on PlayStation. Pretty fun game where you play as Crash Bandicoot. It's a platformer with some side scrolling. You collect apples. You get 100 apples, you get a free life. You got Aku, who helps you out through the game. Also makes it so that you could take 2 or 3 hits before you get killed. Gotta watch out for the TNT stuff in the game, though. It will kill you. And the nitro. And you're basically going through the levels, trying to get the power crystals, and you fight a boss at the end until you get to the very end of the game, and then you fight Neo Cortex, the evil guy right there on the front cover here. This is also a hologram cover. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, you get the point. It's a great game, one of the best on the original PlayStation. And then the last game I have is Final Fantasy IX, and this is an excellent game. We're buying this at Pastime Legends. I had Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VII at one point. Sadly, though, Final Fantasy VII is the most sought after, so it's like a $70 game or some shit. Unless you get the PlayStation 4 remake, which the graphics do look great in that version. But Final Fantasy IX is an excellent game. It's definitely one of the best games you could get for PlayStation. Great RPG game. And now for Sega Saturn stuff. And I actually added 2 more Sega Saturn games recently because I was like, you know what? I'm getting tired of playing the same games on Sega Saturn all the time. So I found some on eBay that actually weren't. Well, one wasn't too badly priced. The other one I snagged for $50, which is a bit high, but better than what some other people wanted for Panzer Dragoon, which we'll get to here. Virtua Fighter 2, this came with my Sega Saturn when I picked it up a year ago. It's definitely a fun game for the Sega Saturn, and surprisingly it does hold up. Really fun fighting game. Although it is a bit floaty, I will say, for its time. Here it is right here, folks. Panzer Dragoon. I knew I had to get this game because it's one of the best games on the Sega Saturn. This and Panzer Dragoon 2. Although Panzer Dragoon Sagas is also a great game, it's just too damn expensive. I mean, I cannot afford to pay $2,000 for a copy. You know what I mean? So I'll just take the original. This did get a re-release later on the PlayStation 4, which is very surprising, with updated graphics and visuals, but other than that, it's basically the same game. The graphics may not look as good as they used to from the Sega Saturn days, although like I said, you can get the PS4 version. But it's like an Unreal shooter game where you play as this dude. It's like a knight on a dragon. You go throughout the levels and you shoot things. You kill the dragons and stuff like that. And it's really a fun game. It's a fun time. It's one of the best Sega Saturn games. And for its time, it was one of the best looking games on the Sega Saturn. So, I mean, for $50, when most people are selling this for $100 or $90, I think that's worth paying $50 for a copy, and especially when it's complete. So, great game. One of the best on the Saturn. This is the other game I picked up recently because I remember it being so much fun. There's a couple of fighting games on the Sega Saturn. Criticom, Fighting Vipers, of course. There's one called Fighters Megamix. And then you also got Last Bronx. And then the original Virtua Fighter. So you got some options for fighting games on the Sega Saturn. There's another one called Battle Arena Toshiden or something. I heard that game sucks, but I know it's on Saturn as well. But Fighting Vipers for a fighting game, it's not bad. Most of the characters, though, I don't think very many people remember this unless they actually own this game when it first came out. Like, I think it was 1996 or 1997. But it's pretty good. I have beaten this game before, but for $20 and the fact that I don't have that many Saturn games, I decided to pick it up. And it is a good multiplayer game if you want to have like a friend over. So if I have like Kyle or Joseph over to hang out, and we decide we want to play this fighting game for Sega Saturn with 2 controllers, it'd be a blast, man. Play like 40 different matches or something. Kill a couple hours. See who wins the most fights. Pretty good. I like it. Mario Andretti Racing. This was an alright racing game. This also came with my Sega Saturn when I bought my Saturn for $100. There is a PlayStation version of this game, but it's also excuse me. It's also on Sega Saturn. It's very hard to win a race, I will say. I mean, me and Joseph could not win really any races. Like, it's very hard. But I will admit the tracks look okay, and the racing is still pretty fun. So it's not a terrible game, but definitely cannot touch Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. And yes, I say Championship Circuit Edition because the original version, it's not as good as the updated version that they did. Criticom, this game does kind of suck, honestly. It's not really that great of a game. It's not a great fighting game. I think I got it off of eBay for about $25. You know, because I needed some games to play. But from what I played, yeah, this game's not really that great, honestly. It's quite forgettable. None of the characters are memorable either, which is why they never went on to make any other games, from what I know. Yeah, I mean, if you can get this game for cheap, and you're looking for Sega Saturn games to play, I mean, at least give it a try. But for me, I didn't care for it. I thought it really sucked. Alien Trilogy. This was a good first-person shooter on Sega Saturn. There were a bunch of Sega Saturn shooter games, but the problem is like Congo is like the worst game ever, you know, for a first-person shooter on Saturn. And there were a couple others like Power Slave, which is really good, but very pricey. And also Quake and a few others. But from what I played, it's pretty good. You play as like a soldier and you go through levels and you kill aliens in the game. It's done quite well. I recommend it if you are a fan of the Alien movies or if you just like blowing things up. Pretty good game. It's not going to be cheap though. It's going to be around $60 or so, or $50, which is about what I paid for it. And the last game I have here is Quake. You got to turn the TV up, the brightness up a bit, because if it's down low, you can't see anything. I also had to tape it when I got it, because when I got it, the case was cracked. I mean, this thing up here and the bottom down there, so just taped it to keep that on. But yeah, Quake is a pretty good first-person shooter game for the Sega Saturn. It was also released on the N64 as well. Here's the back. I at least have the back. I don't have the manual, but I do have the back. So, it's a good game. T for teen. That's interesting, because the N64 version's rated M. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good game. I recommend it. And those are all my Sega Saturn and PlayStation games. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Watching me either roast these games and say this game sucks, or say that it was a pretty good game. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, God bless you and thank you for watching. Peace.